Bloomberg The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue our Black History Month special with Walter Mosley, the award-winning author. We're talking to Walter Mosley. There's an article from 2006 called Walter Mosley on a New Black Power. And it begins, most Black Americans have been Democrats for at least the 53 years that I've been alive. What have the Democrats done for us in all that time? We have the lowest average income of any large racial group in the nation. We're incarcerated at an alarmingly high rate. We are still segregated and profiled.
Yeah. Well, that was the beginning of a long arc of thought for me. At that time, I was saying, well, we should just have a black party and get all these black people together and tell whoever's running for office what we want. And you say, you get our vote, and we'll be an interest group rather than, you know, a Democrat or a Republican. But later on, as I worked on it, I kept thinking, well, really, the problem with America is its inaccurate interpretation of democracy. We go out and say, well, you vote and then things happen, you know. And so later on, I actually wrote a book that I haven't published. I just give it to people. It's called Making Democracy in America, in which you get people to vote blind, meaning to say, vote for what's good for you, never for things you don't like. And in order to, if you could get people to do that, everybody in America thinks the same thing, because everybody in America is in the working class. Everybody in America wants a living wage, wants to retire comfortably, wants education for their children. You know, if you only voted for the things that were important to you, we would all vote together. And that's what democracy is about. It's not whether I like you or not, or I agree with your lifestyle or not. It's what's important for me in my life. And so I've been trying to work out a way to create a blind democracy, completely ignoring basically the self-interest corporations of the Democrats and the Republicans.
Well, let's stay on electoral politics. You recently wrote a piece, an opinion piece for CNN called Food Stamp President, Gingrich's Poetry of Hate. I want to play a clip from the January Republican debate when Fox News moderator Juan Williams questioned Newt Gingrich about his food stamp comment.
And I got to tell you, my email account, my Twitter account has been inundated with people of all races who are asking if your comments are not intended to belittle the poor and racial minorities. You saw some of this reaction during your visit to a black church in South Carolina. You saw some of this during your visit to a black church in South Carolina, where a woman asked you why you refer to President Obama as the food stamp president. It sounds as if you are seeking to belittle people.
Well, first of all, Juan, the fact is that more people have been put on food stamps by Barack Obama than any president in American history. The politically correct, you're not supposed to use facts that are uncomfortable.
That was Newt Gingrich being questioned by Fox News's Juan Williams at a Republican presidential debate. Walter Mosley, your response, the food stamp president.
You know, it's so interesting. You know, I had to struggle with CNN a little bit because I had written it about the poetry of the statement. Food stamp president, it's brilliant. I mean, it's like a whole book of things in 3 words, you know, that he's, you know, and he implies them, so he's not really saying it, you know. And then when you watch the, you know, the clip, it's the same thing. He goes, well, Juan, and he stops because he wants you to understand, I'm talking to somebody of color. You know, I mean, it's like the way he does it is so, he's really a master at that. And I wanted to talk about how that's the kind of useless if brilliant American politics. We're talking about things which don't matter. What matters is people being able to afford their own lives. What matters is people saying whether or not they think the rich should be taxed. What matters is what the issue is in American politics. And Newt is so brilliant at getting around that. Luckily people see through it, which is good. But I just I'm kind of amazed by him, and I'm not bothered or even frightened of him. What I'm frightened of is people who don't understand their own system. I spoke at a fundraiser for Obama, back before he got elected, and the only thing I said was, look, we're working really hard now to get him elected. We have to work twice as hard after he gets elected to make sure what we voted for actually happens. And it was like I was speaking to the deaf. They just looked at me like, what are you talking about? He's going to be elected. Of course, that's, it doesn't make any difference who's president if the people who make up the polity aren't working just as hard to make things happen.
And what did happen in this 3 years, do you think? I mean, you wrote this.
I think that most people in America just sat back and and started criticizing, and forgot what the issues were, like forgot when the economy fell apart. And I think that there are things that Obama hasn't done. I think there are things that Obama can't get done. But I can't blame him. It's like that old Bobcat Goldthwait joke when he says, I don't like Ronald Reagan. He said, but I can't blame Ronald Reagan for my problems. Blaming Ronald Reagan for my problems is like blaming Ronald McDonald if you get a bad cheeseburger, And that's really the best political joke I've ever heard. And it makes so much sense. It's my fault. It's our fault. If we're not working every day to make it happen, then we have to blame ourselves. We can't blame a guy who, got elected and he's sitting there alone in the White House, I mean, I agree he has a lot of power, but he doesn't have enough power without us.
Let's go to another clip from Always Outnumbered, which is set in Los Angeles, where the protagonist, Socrates, is talking to a young boy named Daryl. Daryl's just stood up to some gang members with Socrates' help.
I was scared.
That was a good punch you gave that boy, though. Landed right on the chin. Come on, don't be that way, Daryl. You stood up for yourself. That's all a black man can do. Hey, you're always outnumbered. You're always outgunned.
They still gonna be after me.
Yeah, but you done stood up. Did your best. And now, you ain't got nothing to be ashamed of for the rest of your life.
How that's gonna help me?
Look, you done did your job, Daryl. Now it's up to me. I got to go out here and find me a job. Maybe I can help you.
Socrates talking to Daryl, Walter Mosley.
Yeah, I think that the idea that you're always outnumbered, you're always outgunned, is the central moment of the book. But it's also it brings to mind a discussion I had with my father when I was young. My father said, Walter, if you want to do as well as the white man at work, you have to go in a half hour earlier and leave a half hour later. And then later on, he said, now if you want to do better than him, you got to come in an hour earlier and leave an hour later. And I said, but Dad, that's not fair. And he goes, that's right. And that was it. That was the end of our discussion. One of the important things to learn is that, if you're fighting a war, you really have to know what your resources are and what your situation is. And then you can't complain about it. You can say, well, that's it. I have 2 guns. I got to make these 2 guns work somehow, or give up. The choice is yours on that. You don't have to come in a half hour earlier. You don't have to stand up for yourself against odds that you can't beat. But if you don't, then you're going to have lost something.
Talk about why you decided to choose the detective novel as one way of expressing yourself.
I didn't start off writing detective novels. The first thing I wrote was Gone Fishing, which is Easy Rawlins and Mouse, but it wasn't a detective novel. I sent it out, and everybody said to me, so well, it's good writing, but who's going to read this? And I go, what do you mean? So, well, white people don't read about black people, black women don't like black men, and black men don't read, so who's going to read your book? And so, I accepted it. A lot of people, their first book don't get published, so I went back and I wrote another book about Easy and Mouse, but this time it was a mystery, and everybody was like, wow, that's great, a black detective. One guy actually said, but there already is a black detective. And I said, well, there's a whole bunch of white detectives. And going, I don't see what you mean by that. But that worked. And then it worked in ways that I didn't expect, because everybody reads mysteries. And they don't care who the detective is. They care about the mystery itself. And then a world gets revealed throughout that. You know, that starts with Sherlock Holmes. You know, he kind of reveals the whole empire through those short stories. And so I said, wow, this is really great. This is working. I'm getting all kinds of people to read this book. And, you know, and that's really wonderful.
Who influenced you, Walter Mosley? Who brought out the writing in you? How important was school for you?
Well, you know, I've always been really bad in school. I can't study anything I'm not interested in, or that I can't see a direct reason for studying it, and that was always a really bad thing. I always tell people that, you know, if you come to like a young black woman, she's going to be a writer. You'll say who influenced her, and she'll say, well, Phyllis Wheatley and Zora Neale Hurston and Alice Walker and Toni Morrison and Edwidge Danticott and Zadie Smith. She'll say names to you that will make you put her in higher esteem. You know, you're going to be like Toni Morrison. The truth is, you learn how to read when you're a kid. Who influenced you was Nancy Drew, right? If you read Beloved at the age of 8, you would either kill yourself or your mother, right? You know, I mean, you said, Mom, I read this book and I don't buy it. You know, so one of us has to go. I mean, that's what you would say. You have to be an adult. But when you learn how to read, you're a child. You love literature. It's real. You really experience it. Your imagination is the most powerful it will ever be. You're closer to your unconscious than you will ever again be. So you read these things that are not great literature, as E.M. Forster talks about in his book about writing, but you take the things that you love and you make them into something. So, like, I'm really influenced by the stories my father told about his childhood. I'm very influenced by comic books. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and Marvel Comics really kind of structured my life. Later on, you know, I read Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Albert Camus and Andre Malraux, and they influenced me. But the big thing was, you know, the Fantastic Four when I was a kid.
A lot of people were introduced to you because Bill Clinton held up your book when he was running for president. Talked about his favorite writer, one of his favorite writers. Yeah. What was the effect of that for you? I mean, it's not as if you're not critical of the politics that Bill Clinton represents.
No, I'm very critical of those politics. You know, I mean, he was better at satisfying the Republican agenda in economics than anybody, because he was a Democrat doing it, and so, you know, it kind of went by. You know, even better than Reagan at it, and, you know, it's a problem. We know that we're facing a problem in this country because of the apology for capitalism, which, you know, you can accept it without apologizing for it. But you know, I mean, I like him, and he liked my book, and that made me, that put me on the screen for all people in media all over the world. So even today, people will say, well, what about, you know, Bill Clinton? You know, and I said, well, you know, I haven't talked to him lately, but yeah, he liked my books when they came out.
So you had dinner at the White House under Clinton. How about with President Obama?
Oh, no, Mr. Obama and I are not having dinner together, you know. But that's okay.
Why?
I mean, I would go. I mean, if he invited me, but I don't. Yeah, he's not going to invite me. My politics, the things I talk about, the things I do, they're not going to, you know, help his agenda. And you know, he's the president. What he needs to do is help his agenda.
But you did it with Clinton.
Yeah, well, Clinton invited me. I helped his agenda. I was a black man. I was a writer. Yeah, he liked me. He felt, you know, and he felt a kind of, you know, a largesse. You know, Obama's kind of, you know, he's under pressure. You know, I don't mind. I mean, he hasn't invited me, but I don't mind that he hasn't. Mr. Obama has done everything for me that he ever could by getting elected, and I'm happy with that.
So are you one of those people that you warned an Obama fundraiser to do, and that is go out there and do something after he gets elected? Are you one of those people who's doing that?
Well, I do things, you know, like, you know, I'm continually doing things, you know, donating to causes that I think are important, including Occupy Wall Street, writing my monographs, you know, talking about the political dialogue and then opening that dialogue. I'm on the board of the Nation, and I work there trying to say, you know, listen, why are we bailing out corporations when really she should be bailing out individuals? Anybody under $40,000 should get that, the bailout, not me. I continually, I use my efforts in a political fashion.
Will you fundraise for Obama again?
Yeah, I would. I would, but I would say the same things. I would do it mainly so I could say, look, we messed up the first time. Let's try to get it right this time. So that would be important. I mean, I think it's important to have your voice out there, even when you don't agree completely, with the person. Democracy isn't us coming into agreement. It's us working toward a common goal.
Do you think it matters if it's Obama or Santorum or Newt Gingrich or Mitt Romney in the White House?
Well, look, it matters if we don't take action. It matters if we don't push to make the electorate push to make the changes in America that we feel are necessary for us, the positive changes that we feel are necessary for us. If we don't do that, yes, it matters. Obama will be better than them. But if we're willing to roll up our sleeves and do the work, whoever's in there is going to have to do what we say. So it doesn't matter. So there's a difference, because people are saying, well, you have to worry about the Supreme Court and you have to worry about, yeah, because you're not doing anything. But if we're doing stuff, none of that stuff matters because we will be making the differences. We will be making the differences in the country. And we're not doing that now. So we don't live in a democracy. We live in an oligarchy. We're ruled by corporations and the very rich. And so, you elect Obama, but, he can't get around those corporations and the very rich. You work for, elect a Republican, well, they like the corporations and the very rich, but it's the same general direction. So, yes, it would make a difference if we don't do anything. And if we do stuff, hey, listen, it's our country.
And what are you proudest of?
What am I most proud of? I'm proud of becoming a writer. I'm proud of becoming a writer and then staying the writer. I'm proud of becoming a writer and staying the writer that I became. Not saying, well, okay, you're a mystery writer on that particular production line. No, I am Walter Mosley writing the books that I believe in, and you can't argue about that either.
Well, Walter Mosley, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Award-winning author Walter Mosley turned 60 in January. He's published 37 books, including a series of best-selling mysteries featuring the private investigator E.Z. Rawlins. Most famous of those is Devil in a Blue Dress, but his latest novel is called All I Did Was Shoot My Man, following the modern-day private eye Leonid McGill as he navigates a world filled with corporate wealth, armed assassins, and family drama. He's also written a nonfiction book, 12 Steps to Political Revelation. And that does it for our show. We've just redesigned our website. You can visit democracynow.org and please give us your feedback. And we're hiring a development director. Go to our website for details. Apply immediately. Tonight, Democracy Now! Co-host Juan Gonzalez will be in Philadelphia signing copies of his new book, News for All the People, The Epic Story of Race in the American Media. The event is open to the public. It's at 6 p.m. at Temple University's Annenberg Hall, 2020 North 13th Street.